We have the new Sony 70-200 f2.8 G Master 2. It's going to be about $2,800.
We're comparing that to the first generation 70-200 f2.8 GM, the lens that really changed things for so many professional portrait and sports photographers by giving them a mirrorless answer to what had been an exclusively DSLR segment. This lens was amazing, but has it stood up to the test of time? Right now it's going for about $2,600, but I think it's going to be a little less expensive. We also have the light budget option, the Tamron 70-180, which hits the price point of about $1,000 to $1,100 if you get it used at KEH. And that comes with a warranty and a return policy, so be sure to check out our sponsor when you're shopping for anything.
So the first thing that we're going to do is use all three of these lenses in a more real world experience. We're going to take portraits of one another, talk about how each lens performs, and then later in the video we're going to be taking them into the studio and doing more controlled testing on our friend and our mannequin, Val.
We have 12 tests that we'll be scoring these lenses on, and the first one was price. So clearly the new one loses that. Followed by the original Sony lens, and the Tamron lens wins with the lowest price point.
I think more importantly, I want to find out, do you get what you pay for? Is it really worth upgrading from the older Sony 70-200 to get the new one and pay a little bit more? And is it worth the stretch, if you can, in your budget to upgrade to the Sony instead of a more budget lens like a Tamron? So that's what I'm more interested in.
Good question. And if you have to travel anywhere, like we're on location now, the weight of it can really matter to you. So the second test is weight. And the Tamron clearly wins this. It is the smallest and the lightest.
But the new Sony is about 30% lighter than the old Sony. So if you've been shooting with the older Sony and that difference in weight matters to you, you might like that this one's a bit lighter.
Let's take some portraits.
Here's the most expensive lens versus the least expensive lens. Can you tell which is which? How about zoomed in to 200%? Here's the answer. The image on the left is the Tamron at $1,100 compared to the $2,600 new Sony. I compared dozens of pictures and just couldn't tell. None of the three lenses ever missed focus with the Sony A1. While I couldn't tell the difference in the image quality, the handling of the new Sony lens was nicer, so we'll give it a couple extra points.
The new Sony 70-200 has an aperture ring on it with physical markings, which I absolutely love that. You don't have to use it. You can just set it to A and it will be automatic. But I love being able to just quickly switch between apertures and to see the aperture that I'm at before I start shooting. If you're a video person, you can turn off the click here so that the aperture changes nice and smooth so that there's no harsh changes as you shift it.
Now let's compare the real focal length at the long end of each of the three lenses. You can see the photo taken with the old lens is actually larger, even though they're both at 200 millimeters. The new lens suffers from more focal shrinking than the old lens did. Chelsea's smallest with the Tamron because it only zooms to 180 millimeters. The extra length of the other two lenses can be important because it gives you more working distance. That's particularly useful in situations like weddings where you might not be able to get as close as you want to the subject. Let's give a few extra points to the Sonys.
I never like to have direct sun on the subject's face because then they start to squint and the shadows are really harsh. But a really inexpensive folding diffuser like this, I just rig it up on a stand and it sort of creates shadow, and I don't even really need a light with it because it sort of becomes its own light source. I'll show you some sample pictures. Turn that strobe off first. You can see just how huge of a difference something inexpensive like a $10 diffuser can make in your portraits. If you want to learn more about all of these techniques, including posing techniques, we have a lot of training for this. We have Stunning Digital Photography, which covers the basics of camera settings and portraits. We have our Flash video training series, which teaches you how to use lights, including strobes like this. And we have our Professional Portrait Training series that'll walk you through making money and actually paying for all this cool gear.
Our next segment is sports, and if this new lens makes you want to trade in your old one and get a new one, don't sweat it because KEH makes that entire process fast, easy, and reliable. We sell all of our used gear to them because you don't have to worry about someone scamming you.
The Facebook Marketplace guy who doesn't show up on time and then haggles with you after you've put it in his truck?
That's a very specific example. And if you're buying gear there, you don't have to worry about getting broken gear because they check all of their gear. They have a warranty. And also, if anything breaks, they'll take it back within 180 days, right?
180-day warranty,
That's a
21-day
good
return
warranty.
period.
So whether you want to buy new gear or trade in your used gear, check out KEH. The link is in the description down below. And we even have coupon codes where you can get 5% off of anything you buy or a 5% bonus on anything you sell. So thanks, KEH.
So we're testing sports, and the last time we did this with the Sony A1, it didn't perform that well with the old 70-200. Now, a lot of you didn't blame the camera. You said that lens is super old, it's slow focusing.
Both cameras achieved their manufacturer spec frames per second when we were further away. But as we got closer, we put more pressure on the focusing system, and the frames per second dropped significantly in the case of the Alpha 1.
So I'm interested to see both how the new 70-200 does and how the $6,500 Sony A1 does with that new lens. Will it actually make it perform better?
So Tony, you got into your sporty outfit.
Yeah, I'm the superior athlete, so I'm the one doing the athleting right now.
Yes. So maybe you can run towards me and we'll see how much it can track your face and your movement.
Okay.
Okay. Ready, go.
The difference in focusing performance is huge. In 2 runs, the Tamron got only 81 shots sharp. The old Sony got 135. The new Sony got 263 sharp shots with the Sony A1. Clearly, if you're shooting sports, the new lens is worth the upgrade. The total shots tell a different story. The Tamron got only about half of them sharp. The Sony missed focus on about half of them too. But the new Sony got 75% of them sharp, despite my incredible speed. Let's hand out points and give the new Sony the credit it's due for its super fast focusing motors. Now, into the studio with our mannequin Val for controlled tests of contrast, chromatic aberration, and bokeh. The contrast test simulates shooting directly into the sun, which is a common technique in portraiture. The sun here completely washed out the old Sony 70-200. This happened to us in the real world, and that's why we know to test it. The new Sony handled it wonderfully. Look how much more contrast her face has. Let's zoom into the eye. The new Sony is so much better. I am totally trading in my old lens at KEH. Let's compare the old Sony lens on the left to the Tamron lens on the right. The less expensive Tamron, way better than the professional grade Sony. Yeah, the old Sony wasn't that great technically. Sony has improved their G Master lenses so much, but this Tamron really a great value. Speaking of shooting into the sun, let's check the starburst effect when shooting at f/22. Here you can see the new Sony produces much cleaner starburst than the old Sony. Flaring is also much more controlled too. The Tamron here also better than the old Sony lens. However, the flaring is pretty crazy on the Tamron. Let's compare the bokeh of the old Sony against the new Sony. Look how much better these backlit flyaways look on the new Sony. The new Sony's bokeh balls are smoother and cleaner. Let's compare the old Sony to the less expensive Tamron. Again, the Tamron is better. Notice though there isn't as much bokeh because it doesn't stretch to a full 200 millimeters. That means the Tamron's bokeh balls are smaller, but they're nice and smooth. Let's zoom in on these flyaways to look for chromatic aberration. Both the new and old Sony, well, they're not bad, but they're not great, and I would say they're about the same. Compared to the Tamron here though, they're both way better. The Tamron has bad chromatic aberration. Now for you landscape photographers, let's compare the sharpness. Oh my god, the new Sony is so much sharper than the old Sony. Especially in the corners, the difference here is huge. Big win for the second generation GM lens. How does the old Sony compare against the budget Tamron? Whoa, even the Tamron beats the Sony. For corner sharpness too, this Tamron is a good lens. Now let's check the t-stops. People don't know this, but f-stops shouldn't be part of the exposure triangle. Instead, t-stops actually measure the exposure. These 3 photos were taken at the same settings, but check the histogram in the right as I scroll through them. The new Sony is about 1/6 of a stop brighter than the old Sony. The Tamron's also a little bit brighter than the old Sony. And now for stabilization. The Tamron is not stabilized, but it's lightweight and it performed well with the Sony A1's built-in sensor stabilization. The old Sony lens's optical stabilization did a little bit better, so it's a better choice for low light work. The new Sony though didn't do that great, and we double checked our work. Maybe the A1 needs a firmware update to work better with this lens. I got bored of making the scoring template, so here's the final score. The old Sony lens comes in a distant last place. This lens was really disappointing. The Tamron is way less expensive and overall performs much better. It's a great value. The big winner, of course, is the new Sony lens. It's expensive, but worth the money.
Okay, so what's our conclusion? We have the Tamron 70 to 180, and this is the great budget option. It's $1,100 at KEH. It's a great portraits lens. But where you're going to see it struggle is with the speed. It's not going to be good for sports, and it's also not handling backlit situations as well. So if you like to take portraits with a lot of backlighting and that's your style, you may not like this lens. You want to try it out first. But it's a great deal, and it's a good lens overall.
This lens, the new Sony, at $2,800, it's worth it. That is a whole lot more than that, but it is so much better for sports. It got like 3 times more photos sharp than this one. Also in backlit situations, it is perfect. So you know, no matter what the situation, this is going to deliver. Now, where we're not sure, the old Sony, this feels like it's now obsolete. Like it really wasn't great at anything, and it's still pretty expensive. I, for one, I'm going to take my old Sony, I'm going to sell this to KEH, and as soon as this is released, I'm going to buy it. Oh, I just realized how much lighter this is. I forgot. It's so light. Definitely buy or sell from KEH. Go check out their inventory first, and when you're ready to upgrade, give them all your old stuff so it can have a new life. You might actually just end up buying our 70-200. Be sure to subscribe because we're going to put this new 70-200 up against the Canon, Nikon, and Fuji versions because this is such an important lens that we really need to know how they perform before we pick a system.
If you want to see some other comparisons, let us know in the comments down below. Thank you KEH for sponsoring this video and for providing great gear at good prices. Subscribe if you'd like to see more, and thank you.
Bye.